Hello and welcome to night 32 of Fun with Cheese. Tonight's special Fun with Cheese is going to be more of a salute than focusing on a different cheese that we've had. As always, we have our friends of the show. I have some friends that have found me some hats. And so you're going to be seeing some very unique hats upcoming shows, and it'll take me out a couple weeks now. But this one actually is circa 1985, and it's from Lynn Dairy, which is about 10 miles up the road to the west of us here at the Casa de Canoyer. And they are a processor of whey solids as well as taking in milk and things like that. So they make dried whey proteins and things like that and take in whey from different plants around the area. And also to Carhartt, because it's a little brisk tonight, but I did decide to have a fireside chat with you. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our friend string cheese again, and how my love of string cheese actually started. You see, my family has been a long line. There's a lot of milk haulers on both sides of the Canoyers and the Haas's. The Haas side goes back to my Uncle Pete, who was born in 1902, and he was an original can hauler. And then my Uncle Hans, who was born in 1930, and he was a can hauler for the Siegel Cheese Factory and for the Dairy State Cheese. And then my Uncle Hans, or Uncle Nooks, he was a milk hauler as well. Never got to go on the milk route, but he started and learned how to play sheephead by going to Santa Dairies in Vesper, and that's where they were hauling bulk for the first time. And he was a can hauler as well. And these guys, you got to remember that every little place you see out in the country used to have a little dairy farm, and they would have canned milk. And then in the 50s and 60s, things switched over to bulk, and that's where you put milk was put into a step saver, into buckets, and then a step saver, and then was pumped into the bulk tank, as opposed to dumping right into 10-gallon milk cans. So my Uncle Putz was a relief milk hauler. My Uncle Steve was a milk hauler for Dairy State in bulk, and my Uncle David is a milk hauler as well. So my cousin Pucko was Hunts's son. He then took over and started hauling milk in about the mid 90s, and up until the day he passed. Just, you got to understand milk haulers. They are the guys who are in the supply chain that guarantee you that the milk that you are getting obviously is antibiotic free and free of any sort of things that can harm you, because number one, when they come to the farm, they take a sample of that bulk tank and they dip that milk there. They are the person who helps that farmer, because they take that sample, which then helps them determine the amount of solids, the amount of fat, and the somatic cell tests that are done at the factory. And then based on that, they get their premiums on their checks and things like that. And so based on that sample, they take a sample of every farm, and then they take those samples to the dairy. And then when they get to the dairy, then that milk, the 5,000 gallons that might be in their truck today, in my Uncle Hunts's day, when they switched to bulk carriers, it was just a single axle truck, but they take a sample of that before anything even leaves the truck. And then that milk gets sampled before it even gets unloaded and tested for antibiotics or any sort of residue that might be there, if there was any. And so the farmer isn't putting any antibiotics into the milk as far as milking what we call a hot cow into the tank. They're there just as a check. And so milk haulers are they're kind of local heroes. As far as their ability, you got to understand that they're going to be the psychologist, they're the priest, they are the local joke teller, they are the source of news, and they're just crazy people who are out there that provide this awesome service. And you got to understand that even my Uncle Hans would listen to, and my Uncle Puck would listen to the Lutheran Hour on Sundays, because they haul 7 days a week. And by hauling 7 days a week, this is just something that they do. They might get a day off or 2 days off here or there. but they're there to listen to the farmers. They're there to, pass knowledge along. They're there taking these big trucks down these roads in all weather conditions. My Uncle Nooks told stories of having to hook up chains at one farm so he could get to the second farm down in the Babcock area, put chains in the truck. These guys would have snow plows in the front of the truck back in the 50s and 60s to get stuff through. They were the biggest machines out there to get through on these roads in the snow time. And so when my Uncle Hans would pick me up, we'd go on milk route, and we'd get picked up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'd either have to get there before they milked cows, because you couldn't pick up milk in the meantime while they were filling the bulk tanks, so you have to get there really early, or the farmers, we'd get there like after they would get done, and we'd pick up and haul in, and he'd tell stories. And when we got to Dairy State, we'd unload, and one of the cool things was he'd always buy me string cheese, and I learned how to eat string cheese like this because it was just something we did. We had string cheese, and then we get cheese curds fresh out of the vat. You got to remember, this is like 1983. I'm 7 years old, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a big deal. And then we ride. And the reason I bring this up is that, this tradition is passed down. And we have the Richardsons over in Auburndale there who've been milk hauling for generations, and the Derringer family who are private milk haulers, and the Grossmans down in Pittsville. All these guys, hearts of gold, and just really cool people. And my Uncle Puck would pick me up. And this is 10 years later, fast forward. My Uncle Hans passed away from pancreatic cancer in 1988. And then Puck took over and felt his calling. And he would take me around, and he'd introduce me to all the girls in the farms. The biggest farm we went to was the Leroy Altman farm. And we pull up a 5-gallon bucket at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we tip that bucket up against the bulk tank and take a nap for 20 minutes as it pumped this. This is the biggest farm at the time. And it was just the coolest thing, and a rarity now to get to go on a milk route. And those of you out there who've gotten to go on a milk route know how special it is to put a cheese sandwich in the window of the truck and turn the heater on and turn that into a grilled cheese sandwich. And then you'd have your noon lunch. Just a cool thing. And you got to remember, these guys are on the road. They're key parts of our supply chain, getting the milk from the farm to the dairy plants in sanitary stainless steel trucks that are built right here in Marshfield, Wisconsin, doing it safely, going down country roads that can be icy, can be snow covered, can be full of rain and things like that. And the treats they bring, they're very special. Uncle Puck used to would dump off dog treats before he would start backing down the road and flip those into the ditch, and the dogs would eat the dog treats. Uncle Hans was notorious for his pink candy. So those things you always had when you went on the milk route. But my hat's off to you. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up was that milk hauler in Ellsworth and his story, and how his battle with pancreatic cancer and how he's going through chemo right now. It brought back so many memories that, you guys are cream of the crop, and my hat goes off to you. This hat is broken, by the way. It's so old, but, still saluting you, still eating my cheese, loving it. Here's to day 32, looking forward to 33. And another fireside chat and a visit with Bruno. So, you guys be good. Eat your cheese, support your dairy industry. Be good. This is Milk's Step into Immortality. See you tomorrow.